Hey everybody, welcome to the We Are Pool Players podcast. I'm your co-host Greg Plester.
Here with Erik Hjorleifson.
And let's get into it. So Erik, we didn't have too much on the radar this week. We really only had the only thing to really call out, and I mean from a North American perspective, not everybody follows it, is the snooker, the Kazoo Open. Ronnie against Higgins in the final. Higgins wins. The biggest story out of this whole thing, though, just to kind of as a quick recap, is John Higgins lost, I think, four frames, something like that.
Yeah, 46
four frames. The entire, like, he fed a donut to Mark Selby.
Well, he set a record for allowing the opponent with the least amount of points in. I don't know if it was a race to 6 or what numbers. It was a race to 6 in their match, but put it this way: he scored 7 points in 6 games and won 0. Like, obviously, if you only score 7 points, right? But they were saying it was just an out of this world whole performance for the whole tournament. And he's 46 years old. Like, we're seeing this, like good performances from players of all ages. You got a world champion that's, I think, 21 years old, and you got a world snooker champion that's 45 years old. So like that's a pretty big range right there, right? Efren's been winning these challenge matches in the Philippines lately. He's he's like close to 65 now.
Isn't he?
So I think it's kind of interesting to see the success of players over all ages. I'm not going to see that in, I don't know, if it'd be hard to pick out any other sport in the world where you'd see something like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what the message of Higgins winning is? We're all going to Europe and we're playing snooker. It's never too late. It's never too late. Right. No, that's amazing though, eh? So just a quick recap on the Kazoo though. Good for Higgins. Yeah, again, so not too much to recap, but the one kind of call out before we get in the topic of the podcast this week, which is professional pool players, kind of diving into that, and you'll have great perspective on that. But the one call out we want to have is the Matchroom League, and I don't know if we have to double back a little bit on all the hype I've maybe been saying over the last number of podcasts, but how many players dropped out now?
So yesterday we saw them come out with an announcement that 4 players have dropped out of the Champions League tournament. That's going to be the 3rd week of March. This situation arose because they announced that Predator was the title sponsor for the event, and Predator had made a stipulation that none of the players could wear any of their own cue sponsors on their shirts for the tournament. I mean, right off, that's pretty daunting. I mean, it's something that would kind of, I'm not going to, I think slap in the face is the wrong term, but it's something that would, it's right on the player's radar of, well, we have to have a response to this. And there's so many ways to go with what we're going to talk about, and feel free to add into what I'm saying right now. But I think one of the first things that comes to mind is that if the players had an association, this is the kind of thing that would be run by the Players Association.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Do you remember the Players Association? When was that? 10? Was it longer ago?
They barely ever had a strong one. I mean, sure. Archer tried to, assemble something about 5 or 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It gained some traction, but there's never been there's no official league, right? So now we're getting into something that could be an official Matchroom league. So now you got to think, well, okay, the players need to make it a players association. So when things like this arise, they can deal with it, right? So the initial reaction was that for the players that have big Q sponsors, we're going to say 3, and they were talking about Jason Shaw maybe being in the group, but Shane with Q-Tech, Fedor with Q-Tech, and Skylar with Mucci decided that it would be a conflict of interest to, be in a spot like that where they can't represent their sponsors. And I think it's totally fair.
Absolutely.
It seemed like within about a day, Predator came back with, and see the whole thing, Pool is transitioning into this, more professional state of affairs, basically, right? But what I saw here was kind of like a jumble of, maybe they released something to the players and they didn't think about it quite as they should have. And some players responded, some didn't. It's getting tricky because if you're sponsored by Predator, I mean, like, you don't care, right?
Mm.
But, if the players really had a real union and they saw something like this, well, what if the next tournament is sponsored by Q-Tech? How are those Predator players going to feel, right? So I guess Predator is trying to get as much exposure for their title sponsor of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at, I'm just going to go off on a little tangent here. If you look at like snooker events, they're not sponsored by the biggest snooker queues. They're sponsored by gaming sites, or they're sponsored by third-party sites outside of the industry. So there's no conflict, right? But now we're getting into, it's tricky because Predator has been putting a lot of money into pool over the last year. They developed the World Pool Championships, then held them in the United States. I think they're doing a lot better with their equipment than they ever have, and they're finally making, a push to actually sponsor pool. So I don't want to mar them in any way, and I don't want to really get Matchroom caught up in the middle of it. But I mean, something has to be said about we have to be careful about who's going to control everything that's happening in professional pool, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The way they were initially handling this, it seemed like they were trying to monopolize what was happening, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the perception that's getting tossed out there is, where our patch or don't play. I mean, that's kind of the perception. You had mentioned, I mean, there was that, I can't say, it wasn't an official statement. Like, there has been no official statement or position that I've seen yet, I don't think anyone has seen yet from Predator or Matchroom. There was one statement from a guy, I won't say, who works at Predator. I think a number of people saw it, where they basically said kind of the opposite of that a little bit. Maybe they were doubling back. We're not quite sure, but they were kind of saying, no, you can wear your patches, but the number one patch above all the patches on you has to be, Predator League Championships, whatever.
Well,
like
I think that's
own
what
patch.
they doubled back on. I think they ended up deciding that, yes, you can display your own patches.
Mm-hmm.
And now there became some semantics about, well, can we wear our own, should we wear our own equipment patches along with a Predator patch right on top of our own equipment? I think that's just an unfortunate case of, they are the sponsor and they should have the right to have their name along with the title of the event. And that's what they ended up doing. So I think that's a good compromise.
I think that's a great compromise.
Yeah. And I really hope that at this point, those players will rejoin the tournament. And I really hope that Matchroom is sympathetic with that. And I really hope that, none of their sponsors really go overboard and say, well, just because Predator is on a shirt patch, then we're not going to let you play. Like, imagine the Predator billboards that are going to be all around the arena. I mean, isn't that more powerful than what's on someone's shirt? You know what I mean? I don't mean to knock shirt sponsorship, but it's going to be known that Predator is backing this event, and so should it be. They're putting up money for it, and that's fine. So I think it's a good compromise. But I think it's something similar to the Billy Thorpe incident, where everything in pool is becoming scrutinized, and that's sometimes connotated as like a bad word, but I guess more in a way where things are getting bigger, things are getting talked about, and eventually and hopefully the proper solutions are going to come about, and things will just get better, right?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. No, I can't agree more. I think that's a great compromise for them to have the patch above. But you nailed it when, I mean, Predator logo is going to be everywhere. I mean, it's on the header, and don't get me wrong, it absolutely should be. But they're going to get enough exposure. It kind of comes across as petty. But the other question too is like, did they really not think about it fully when they drew up the contracts? Like, right. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they did think about it, like, oh, well, we're the premium sponsor, so we want everyone to, no other patches. But did they really? Because you'd have to think, drawing up the contract in that room, you'd have to think, hey, Phil, do you think there'll be some blowback on this? Like, there's probably going to be a little bit.
I think the small mistake they made is they try to monopolize it, right? Because that's been a thing for years. Like, say an airline company. This has happened a few times in the Middle East when I've been there. Etisalat a few times, and like Qatar Airways has sponsored the World Championships a few times. You have to wear one of their patches, and no one really disagrees with it. But you're allowed to wear your own as well, right? So they just, for some reason, they tried to overstep here. And to be honest, I applaud Shane and Fedor and whoever was at QTech that caught the play and stuff like that. It just wasn't really called for. And I think the general response from the public is on the player's side.
It's not even the player's side or Predator's side. It's common sense side. Like, it just doesn't add up, right? Like,
or the sponsor side. Call it the sponsor side as well. Yeah. They need their exposure. They're paying them. They're sponsoring their players. They need the exposure. That's what it's for, right?
Yeah, we get that, but we got to have our patches on. Like, we plan on not just playing in the Champions League for a week. We have other events after that. Like, we're not retiring on the 9th of March or whatever. Yeah. Sorry, whatever date that is. You know what I mean? Like, we still need to get around get around the planet on somebody's dime, right? So, no, yeah, it's very interesting. I'm still waiting for some sort of. I think we all are still waiting for some sort of press release or something. It'd be great to see. If that one post, the unofficial official post of, everybody can wear their patch, but the Predator patch needs to be above it. If that's legit, and if that gets amended into the players' contracts, I really hope the players do bounce back. Because I heard it was I heard was like 6 or 7 players. I didn't hear the 4. I know there was a few unofficial. But anyway, hopefully they do get signed back up so that we can keep the momentum going. Although, if anybody has taken a look at the prize money, I guess you got to kind of say, okay, first event, it's sponsored by Premium Q Supplier. It's not Pepsi. You know what I mean? So, I guess maybe we get that, and kind of a little bit of patience maybe needs to be required, knowing that as it continues to grow and as you can, get some viewership and, that would transcend into more money in the 2022 Players Championship and so on. I mean, you got to start somewhere. So I hope players know that it does need to start somewhere. I think it was, 1965 U.S. Open Golf, U.S. Open Pool was 5,000 for first. Isn't that the story? Isn't that the lore? And so, I mean, it starts somewhere, and now golf is in the millions.
Yeah.
Whoever did that needs to come to the pool world.
No, well, that's what they did with darts, right? And they started smaller, and it is a first-time event, and maybe they don't. I'm assuming they have the format worked out. I don't think they're worried about the format not working out, but it's just, they want to see what kind of viewership there will be for a new event, which is not the World Cup of Pool or the Mosconi Cup, which doesn't have those country background stories attached to it, right? They've done the World Pool Masters, they've done the U.S. Open, they know what the numbers are on that, but this event will have less prestige than those events, and it's all a learning process for them, right? And I do trust them in the end, but the reality of what the prize money is in this first tournament is it's 9,000 first prize. It's like it's very low. Yeah. So the one thing I did notice was that it's like 9,000 first prize. These aren't exact numbers, but about 7,000 second prize, 6,000 third prize. Like it pays. Let's call it the top 8 make about 5,000, because if you win your group, you win 4,000, and then like the last place player in the second group wins like 1,000 or something. So like 7 players are making 5,000 or more, and only one is making, call it 10.
It's not top heavy. Like it's very well dispersed.
Yeah,
it gives, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, what's the first event? I mean, even the Champions League, I mean, they're shadowing this from the Snooker Champions League, and even the Snooker Champions League, it hasn't been around forever, I don't believe. Like, I don't remember watching it very much. And I mean, it's not, I don't mean to guess here, but there's not a lot of chatter on social media when the Champions League comes up, but there's a lot of chatter when ranking events of any kind come up. So
absolutely, and it pays less than all the rest of their events.
Yeah,
so I guess they're structuring it something similar to that. But when we're talking about 10,000 first prize, well, obviously you need sponsors to be able to go over there, right? Like, I mean, what are you going to do?
How do you like that double-edged sword? Hey, the company that's buying your plane ticket? Yeah, you can't tell anybody they're doing that. Oh, okay. When do I leave?
Right. So they have to realize that, if players are going to go over there and promote their brand for small money, well, they have to promote their brand, which is, that's something that we were talking about getting into as well. Like the opportunity for players to promote themselves as brands now, and the popularity that the game is gaining, to not just be a tournament player, but also to get other things working in your favor, where maybe the prize money is not going to get to 250,000 in the next 2 years, but the opportunities that are going to open up for players, because they're going to become more known and going to become more, let's call them like real athletes. Not real athletes, but just known athletes, where they can go into rooms and do exhibitions and
icons,
teach online and icons, all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think everyone has to stick with it. I think they are. I'm not saying they're not. The only reason they weren't is to try and make a stand against something that I really believe was wrong. And I think once everyone thought about it, they realized it was wrong. So,
well, hopefully Predator comes out with some sort of statement, and hopefully that official, not official, that's what I'm calling it now, the official, not official statement. Hopefully that's correct, and hopefully they are allowed to wear their brand, their sponsored brand underneath and they only require the Predator one above it. Makes total sense, and I hope, and I think we all hope, that the other players who did drop out will go to that tournament, will sign back up or accept the invite, or whatever way you want to put that. So, but you came up with a really good point. So let's take a second here, and then we'll dive into our professional pool player. So that image, that thing. So let's take a second, and we'll dive right into it. So let's get into the professional pool player, and it's interesting perspective having a touring pro on the other side of this mic. So, ultimately I'll put the statement in there is, how do we have professional pool players do more hustling of their brand and their image, and not so much their wallet, or in this, most cases, the backer's wallet? So, you alluded to, and I'll open it up with this. You alluded to it a couple of minutes ago about how the sport will grow, and it's starting to, we can see that growth happening now. There will be more exposure on TV, even if it's Sky Sports for now, but there will be more exposure on TV, more exposure on digital media and social media. The names will get out a little bit more. I mean, I know a lot of us, like, a lot of us know who these players are. We know who they are, but there's a lot of us, and we had touched on this before, but those, a lot of league players who, they don't know who Fedor Gorst is or Filler, and they're going to start to know these names. So getting to that level, and I mean, honestly, I see that happening this year. I see the growth of that happening this year where we will start inherently seeing icons. So do we still expect these new, not new icons, but these professional pool players, do we still expect to see them grinding it out at 3 a.m. at Griff's on table 1 at 3 a.m. for 20 G's? Well, you know what I mean?
I think they still will, because that's a tournament in one day against one player, and I don't really even find any problem with that. You know what I mean? Like, poker players still play in high stakes cash games, even though they play in the World Series of Poker as well, right? That's just the point of, or that's just a part of how the game has been, and I don't think that'll go away, and I don't think it necessarily needs to go away.
Okay, so let me throw this at you then.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a nice little laundry list of things that we think, I think a lot of players and a lot of people think it would be great to see professional pool players do, and we can get into that. But okay, so let's say they continue the action matches, and you're right, I don't disagree that it's a decent amount of money. Some of them are really good money, but when they do these action matches, have the the tight professional looking flyer, have the tight stream. I know, obviously some of the streams, some players don't want to be streamed and so on, but have the tight stream, hopefully get some commentary, at least maybe turn that up a little bit. And I mean, there's a lot of groups out there that are doing that, which is great, but how do we standardize that instead of like the feed drops and then you got to go find, Bob, because he's in the inn and he's got another stream, and then it drops, and then you got to go to this stream and see a different angle, and things like that. So the action's still happening, but it's at another level as well, right? Does that not make? I mean, who's going to do that? But
yeah, it's kind of what Pool Action TV does, right? Like he goes around and streams tournaments and picks up on any action games, and he does a good job of that. It's not unprofessional by any means, and I don't know. I guess you're talking about what kind of scenario are you talking about exactly? Like, the players dress up and they're in a fancy ballroom and they all go to the same place and somehow everyone makes money. I guess it'd be something like that, right?
No. It can still, I mean, by all means, it still happens at Griff's or Racks or wherever it ends up happening. But just, I mean, everybody knows that, in that moment, everybody knows that, we got to up our game a little bit for this, because the game is changing. The Q Sports is evolving, and we want to bring, and you know what? Hey, beyond just the streamers that are going around, there's a lot of individuals who are putting up these streams and they're throwing in some commentary, and so there are people out there doing it just on their own where they do have action. But that's what I mean. Just I guess overall it's everybody understands that the game is evolving, and the action, as much as it's going to continue, should evolve and reflect that as well. So it's not about dressing up. It's that's
like no more Facebook Lives, kind of, or it can be if it pops up in a pool room where players are there. But I guess I think kind of what you're talking about is, remember when Skyler went up and played Roberto in South Dakota?
Mm-hmm.
Geez, I wish I could remember the name of the producer up there. But basically, he got them in a hall, brought in a diamond. Yeah, it was a great production. Brought in people like Joey Ryan from Pool Players Podcast and Mike DeMarco from Ship the Cash. Got proper commentators and put on like a real properly produced stream, right?
And it was amazing.
So
and there's a lot of people doing that,
right?
But I guess that's my point, though, right? Is, I mean, it's limited. You know what? I'll say this then. Does that bounce back to the player? So when the negotiations are happening and they're saying like, okay, 20K and this is the game and this is the, table and whatever. They also say, well, part of this action too is it needs to be properly, who's streaming it? Who's streaming it? Do you have a commentator? Oh, you don't? Okay, well, you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board. Seriously, because I'm a top 20 world player, top 20 in the world or top 10 in the world, I have, and that's kind of what we're talking about right now is that professional pool player brand image. So I have a brand, and being aware that they have an image, they have a brand, right, that they need to build. So they don't come up, and there's going to be a lot of blowback on this one, but it doesn't look like they're hacking away and hustling away in some dark alley, dingy pool room, we'll say, back in 1960 odd 4, and some guy's got a sketchy phone rocking around with, AC/DC in the back, right? Like
the reality is when pros are gambling, it's not like that anymore. They're just playing a challenge match.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't like even when I gamble per se, whatever word you want to use, I don't really think of it like that. I just think of it as a challenge match between two players, right?
That's right.
Not hustling related anymore.
No, and I'm not. Obviously, everybody knows everybody.
You're saying that either,
okay.
But yeah.
But I'm just saying that image. That's all I'm saying. That brand, building that brand, understanding that image, understanding that brand, and hopefully when we do, because I mean, I agree, the action's not going anywhere, but that some of these players, that's part of the negotiation. Like who's producing it? Oh, nobody's producing it. Okay, well, this is for some decent money, or this is against a really good player, or whatever, a nice room. Let's get some production value in this. Like, and I guess people need to kind of know that. I think that's going to come to the forefront of conversation a lot more in the future. It's happening now. We see it.
Yeah, everything is starting to elevate. The bar is starting to raise. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking of a joke in my head. It's something about, well, players used to get staked just to gamble or go play tournaments. Well, how about like giving out a social media person or like a PR representative a piece of what they can create for you in social media and as a real manager.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like I think that I kind of see that. I don't know. We're getting ahead of ourselves maybe a little bit, but
you know what? I don't think so.
Happening now because I think what's coming to mind is that you've got a group of players, and this is not to like knock pool players by any means whatsoever. You have a group of guys that have dedicated their life to perfecting their sport, right? Mm-hmm. Same as any other athlete. They're not social media experts. They're not. Mm-hmm. They don't know. They don't necessarily know how to promote themselves, and it's something that's going to be new for them, right? Like all they know is, well, where's the next tournament, and someone and
who wants to gamble?
Even have people helping them out with that, and there's nothing wrong with that either, right? But what I'm saying is, like, I think it's almost coming time where like a professional promoter can start to pick up some of the top players in the world, right?
Yep.
Teaching angle, or if it's exhibition angle. And people have done this on a small scale in the past, but I'm talking about like hopefully there will be people that come in and help these players develop their brand because they don't necessarily know how to do it. And I don't think they should necessarily be expected to know how to do it.
No,
you know what I mean? So,
no, that's a lot of work. But that was another point, though, is the online media presence. As they become a little bit more, a lot of these players come a little bit more household name by this TV exposure. This year, there is certainly an image and a brand image that they need to carry. And I mean, when you look at top athletes in other fields, regardless of what those prize funds are, they have marketing managers. They have brand managers for them and they work with them. Like they work close together. I mean, even The Rock, like The Rock's not winging it. Like he doesn't let somebody go loosey-goosey on his social media. The Rock has a social media team, but he works with them, right? So, somebody like Fedor Gorst would have, somebody running all his social media platforms, but working with him on his brand image. And and highlighting, maybe an exhibition match, maybe working with some juniors in Europe, or winning a big tournament, or stringing together a bunch of promo videos of him winning or lifting a cup, or whatever the case may be. And then also images of him just day to day, right? Like, that's what interests people. This is like Billy Thorpe is on social media a lot. He does lives, and I'll give him props for that. And if he knows it or if he doesn't know it, he does a lot of great balance work with his social media. He's doing lives, which is massive. He's showing him in his truck scooting around on the 4x4 right out back. He's showing his big wins. He's balancing it so you really understand who Billy is, right? Unfortunately, that other video, but anyway. But that aside, at least you're getting an idea of who that player is, and you can kind of relate to it. And that's what social media is for. So, I agree with you 100% that, and I won't be surprised if at some point this year there's going to be some brand management behind some of these players. I think that's a great call out. And if it's not, you're welcome, whoever just heard this, who's a brand manager, just went and picked up 5 players. Sure. He owes a kickback.
Oh no! I guess time will tell if there's enough money in it for them to actually do something like that. But I think it might get there quicker than you think.
Absolutely, it's scalable. So and like when we talk about the online media, and we talk about this level of professionalism with pool players, we see a lot of them also like actually promoting their sponsors. Their sponsor's product, or doing promotions, or doing raffles, or I've seen a couple videos of players with that specific cue saying this is what it does, and the deflection, like doing those promo spots. I mean, golfers do it with Titleist. Obviously, the production value is phenomenal, but doing that sponsored promo. Doing appearance specials, like it'll get to a point where there's going to be paid appearances where, hopefully, like if Jason Shaw shows up to a tournament, or Shane Van Boeing shows up to a tournament on the Tuesday or Wednesday to hit some balls, he's working with the local league and doing a clinic, or working with juniors, or just, exhibition matches, or maybe the whole package. But that league is, paying them for that appearance, because it's Shane, it's Jason. They should be paid for that appearance, and not to say, and don't get me wrong, obviously there's some charitableness involved, but they should be paid for that appearance, and they're going to want to work with the kids. They're going to want to expand their brand, expand their image, and also develop those players as well, right? So there's even a new room opens. A new pool room opens, right? Like, who's kind of the local pro who can kind of, cut the ribbon per se, like, and do some sort of, so like, just, we're going to get to that. I think we're going to get to that stage way quicker, far quicker than we think. I mean, we're already seeing things elevate on social media. And I think, the purpose of this portion of the podcast is kind of the call out for that. We're hoping to see it as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, if the prize money's not going to be there, which it seems like the prize money's a little behind, and then hopefully that these kind of things are going to happen where players can make a real living, right?
No, absolutely. Well, we just went past the half-hour mark and covered a lot of base today, so that's great, and we're excited to see what Matchroom and Predator hopefully put out, some sort of statement, and we're excited to see, the growth, if we could call it the growth of the brand image for professional pool players as the time goes on. I hope you guys like the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep sending those messages. This is a topic somebody had sent us that we wanted to kind of touch on. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Plester.
I'm Erik Hjorleifson. I know we're just signing off. I'm just going to throw one last side note in there. You reminded me when we were speaking of Billy, he got picked up by Lomax Q's. So he has a sponsor now again. Yeah, nice. So he has a sponsor now again. And I heard he was invited to the Champions League tournament
Yeah. So there you go.
So it looks like he's heading in the right direction.
Good for Billy. That's great.
Okay,
everybody.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Take care.